Emily Granger had always known what it felt like to be invisible. Not in the magical sense, no, there was no fantasy in her life, no cloak or spell to blame. Her invisibility came from silence, from shyness, from the way she tried to take up less space in every room she entered. At school, she was the girl with faded notebooks and the same backpack she'd carried since middle school. She ate lunch in corners, read books behind lockers, and prayed every day that no one would look her way. Because when they did, it wasn't kindness in their eyes, it was mockery. She was 14 when her mother first brought up the idea of karate. It had come after a particularly hard day, one where Emily had come home with torn homework and a bruise on her arm she didn't want to explain. Her mother, eyes tired from 12 hours at the hospital, sat her down, held her hand, and simply said, "I know the world isn't fair, baby. But I want you to feel like you can stand up in it." Emily didn't argue. She never did. The next week, she was in a cold, unfamiliar dojo, wearing a borrowed GI that didn't quite fit, standing among strangers who didn't see her as someone trying, they saw her as someone out of place. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Does she even know what she's doing? She looks like she'd cry if someone yelled boo. What's she gonna do? Read us to death? They thought she couldn't hear them. But she did. Every word lodged itself in her heart like a needle. Still, she showed up again. And again. Because somewhere in her, beneath the trembling hands and lowered gaze, was a quiet defiance. She didn't want to fight to hurt people. She wanted to fight because she didn't want to run anymore. Her first few months in class were brutal. She lacked confidence. Her balance was weak. She flinched when partners raised their hands too quickly. Every mistake earned chuckles. Every fall was followed by sideways glances. The boys in the class, especially Kyle and his friends, seemed to take joy in mocking her. Kyle was older, stronger, and already halfway to his black belt. He called her Snowflake and rolled his eyes every time she bowed. During sparring, he deliberately moved too aggressively, smacking her with open palms, knocking her off balance. Once, when she landed awkwardly and hit the mat hard, he laughed and said, "You sure you're not in the wrong class, princess?" She didn't answer. She never did. But that night, she practiced in her living room until her legs ached and her throat burned from the effort not to cry. It wasn't just about learning moves. It was about learning how not to break. Every bruise became a badge. Every stumble turned into a lesson. Her mother started noticing the change, not in Emily's stance or punches, but in the way she carried herself outside the dojo. She no longer shrank when spoken to. She met eyes just a second longer. And even when the bullies laughed, Emily's gaze no longer wavered. She watched others closely in class, how they moved, how they breathed, how they prepared. She wasn't fast, but she was deliberate. She didn't hit hard, but she hit smart. Each lesson, each drill, was stored in her mind like chapters in a manual. She trained quietly, obsessively, after hours, when no one was watching. And bit by bit, the fear began to recede, not entirely, but enough for her to start believing in her own strength. When the announcement came about the annual speed trials, Emily felt a chill run through her. 1-minute sparring rounds. A chance to show everything you had in just 60 seconds. It was optional. Most beginners avoided it. But something in her stirred, something that had waited patiently behind every humiliation, every insult. She wrote her name on the sign-up sheet without telling anyone. She didn't think about what would happen if she lost. She just thought about what it meant to finally try. She didn't see herself as brave. She didn't want to hurt anyone. But in that moment, she understood what her mother had meant. She had every right to take up space. She had earned her place on that mat. And if they were going to laugh again, it wouldn't be because she didn't fight back. The day of the speed trials arrived with the buzz of anticipation hanging thick in the air like storm clouds before rain. The dojo, normally quiet and focused, was now electric with chatter, laughter, and the clatter of warm-up drills. Parents lined the edges of the mat, instructors stood with clipboards, and students fidgeted with nerves. Emily sat cross-legged near the wall, her palms pressed to her knees to stop them from shaking. Her name was listed 5th on the roster. 5th right after Kyle. The irony wasn't lost on her. Of course it had to be him. Of all the names to be paired with, fate, or maybe karma, had drawn the line exactly where it needed to. Kyle hadn't seen her name until that morning. His laughter echoed like a siren through the hallway when he noticed. "You?" "Against me," he had said, loud enough for the whole locker room to hear. "Someone get a camera. I want to remember the moment a butterfly tried to fight a bulldozer." Everyone laughed. But Emily didn't react. She simply tied her belt one last time, tighter than usual, like it might hold her together if things fell apart. The trials began with fanfare. The first few matches were bursts of energy and flashes of movement. Students sparred in front of judges, their names called, their times recorded, their pride swelling with each applause. Then came Kyle's name. He jogged confidently to the mat, winked at the crowd, and cracked his neck with exaggerated flair. The instructor called Emily next. She rose slowly, her breath steady, her heartbeat loud but controlled. As she walked toward the center, whispers buzzed around her like bees, doubtful, dismissive, amused. But Emily didn't hear them. She saw the mat. She saw Kyle. And she remembered every moment of shame he had caused. Every insult. Every shove. Every cruel nickname. She remembered how it felt to cry silently in the restroom stall. How it felt to train until her arms gave out. How it felt to stand in front of a mirror and not recognize the girl who always looked like she was about to vanish. But she wasn't vanishing now. She was here. She was ready. They bowed. The bell rang. Kyle came fast, grinning like he was about to put on a show. His opening move was an aggressive front kick meant to intimidate, but Emily had expected that. She blocked, sidestepped, and landed a clean counterstrike to his shoulder that wiped the grin off his face. He paused. Confusion flickered in his eyes. In the next 10 seconds, Kyle tried to dominate the match with strength and speed. He lunged, spun, swung, trying to overwhelm her. But Emily was focused like never before. Every move he made, she read like a book she'd already studied. Her blocks were sharp. Her footwork clean. She didn't just react, she anticipated. At 25 seconds in, she caught him mid-step and landed a quick sweep that sent him stumbling. He hit the mat, not hard, but hard enough for the crowd to fall into stunned silence. Kyle scrambled up, now flustered. His cockiness evaporated, replaced with red-faced frustration. 35 seconds in, he charged. It was wild, desperate, reckless. Emily let instinct take over. She ducked, turned, and struck with a spinning side kick that thudded into his chest. He fell back, gasping. 48 seconds. The instructor's eyes were wide now. The other students had fallen completely silent. Even the judges exchanged glances. Kyle, panting, stood again. But his confidence was gone. He hesitated. And Emily didn't. At 55 seconds, she feinted left, drew him forward, and landed a roundhouse to his shoulder that made him lose his balance again. The bell rang. 60 seconds. Just 60. But in that minute, Emily had rewritten the entire story of who she was. The dojo erupted, not in laughter this time, but in stunned applause. Some clapped slowly, as if not fully believing what they had just seen. Others stared, mouths open. The same voices that used to whisper behind her back now whispered in awe. Kyle stood there, dazed. He didn't meet her eyes. He didn't say a word. The instructor raised Emily's hand. Winner! She bowed deeply, her chest rising with every breath, but her eyes no longer wide with fear. She walked off the mat, not triumphant, but whole. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. There was power in her stillness. Power in every quiet step. And later, in the locker room, when Kyle passed her without a word and without the usual smirk, Emily felt something shift. Not in him, in her. She didn't feel small anymore. The girls who had once avoided eye contact now smiled at her. One even asked if she could help show her the move she used to block Kyle's kick. Emily nodded.